In today's video, Gavin Newsom is dealt another legal blow as Texas sues the governor. And secondly, Joy Reid claims that the deportations of illegal aliens is an effort to create slave labor. And finally, President Trump is meeting with Vladimir Putin this week. You got to see how the media is reacting to it. And all of these stories will show you what both sides are saying and give you the bottom line.
Hey, Anna. Well, I do want to start right with that breaking news that we just got here in the last few minutes, and that is that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, alongside the state's House Republican Speaker, they have filed a new lawsuit. This one has been filed in state court in California. It follows that press conference that Governor Newsom held with Texas Democrats yesterday. This new complaint essentially asks a state judge in California to hold these Texas Democrats in contempt and eventually lay the groundwork for them to have to return to Texas and return to the chamber to vote. So this is now just another escalation of the legal fight. By my count, we now have 4 different complaints in different courts. We have, in addition to the one in California, Ken Paxton has made a similar move in Illinois after some Texas Democrats fled there to the city of Chicago. And then we also have court cases that are actually playing out in Texas itself. Both Ken Paxton has filed a case at the Texas Supreme Court. Also, the state's governor, Greg Abbott, he too has filed his own petition at the state's highest court. So a lot of legal battles going on that are expanding nationwide.
Okay, so we don't know if this complaint in the California legal system will work, but what I can tell you, it is a legal blow to Gavin Newsom because he hasn't had a great record legally in California. Remember, he just lost an embarrassing one to President Trump regarding the National Guard troops that were deployed to Los Angeles. And he also lost the case against Elon Musk where he tried to ban AI parody videos during elections. So this may not go his way either. Now, he did have something to say to the Attorney General of Texas by writing on X, "You should definitely use all resources looking for them here." He's talking about the rogue House Democrats. "You will totally find them here." And so I guess he didn't have much to say. And what I find to be interesting is even MSDNC is questioning these Democrats and their strategy and trying to figure out if they're really going to get the results they're looking for. Take a listen.
These fines will pile up. You guys will be gone from your family members for a long time. How long are you willing to be out of the state?
Eugene, you know, it is a sacrifice, and I would be lying to you if I said, oh, forever. But I can tell you right now, our resolve is stronger than it's ever been. We are digging in and we're fighting. The American people in Texas want to see Democrats fight. Yeah. They're sick of seeing the bully authoritarian president run over Democrats. And we said, no, not you ain't dealt with Texas yet. So we are saying, come and get it. We're going to hold out as long as it takes.
Now, someone needs to remind him that they've already done this 3 times in the past and lost every single time. So this is like if Republicans tried to hold out in California over some piece of legislation, even congressional districts, which it doesn't work the same way in California. But the point being is this. It wouldn't work well for Republicans either in California because ultimately it's a supermajority. Democrats will get their way. That's just the bottom line to it. So this is more political theater, more excuses, of course. And the only thing I think Democrats are hoping will happen in the end is that this motivates those blue states to gerrymander even more. And they also find some way to amplify or motivate their base.
And we've already seen that we've been a catalyst for change. We saw California Governor Newsom yesterday said that they're going to put a ballot referendum on the ballot for November to redistrict in California. So we're trying to hold out as long as we can to get other blue states like New York and Maryland and other places that they do the same thing. We got to change the rules of engagement and not allow President Trump to continue to have us bringing knives to gunfights. So if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. We will do whatever it takes for however long it takes.
Now, I think it's been made abundantly clear by now, if you guys have been following this story, that the main reason Republicans should even be doing this in Texas at this point is because imagine how many people have moved to Texas. For example, my family and I, we just moved here. And I'm sure there have been millions over the past few years that have moved to the state. So, yeah, I think it's definitely overdue for new congressional district lines. And as a result, Democrats will cry all about it. but I'm not seeing any racial stuff going on. I'm not seeing Texas Republicans violating laws. And so it makes sense to me why they would do this. I get the pushback, but to turn it into, President Trump's trying to rig the election type of situation, obviously that is just a bunch of nonsense. Now, here's the Vice President, J.D. Vance, also commenting on this entire situation. Take a listen.
If California has crazy gerrymanders, Illinois has crazy gerrymanders, New York has crazy gerrymanders, what it does is it actually suppresses the will of the people in states like Indiana. And the other thing that we talked about, and I didn't even realize this, Maria, until a couple of years ago, that for apportioning representatives, you actually count illegal aliens. That's ridiculously unfair, and the only real way to fight back against it is for us to redistrict in some ways as aggressively as these hard blue states have done.
Now, that is a clip of J.D. Vance's upcoming interview with Maria, which will air this Sunday, and we definitely will talk about it once it comes out in full. But, I think the most craziest reaction to this entire situation is that Democrats are now floating the idea that not only is this white supremacy, but that it's all in your face. And because President Trump is now back in the White House, nobody is afraid to be a white supremacist. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing from none other than Jasmine Low IQ Crockett. Take a listen.
Do you hear the stuff they're saying about Gene Wu, by the way, talking about Asians, like how he's connected to the Chinese Communist Party? Like the racism, they're not doing a great job of keeping it on, keeping the lid on that pot.
No, I mean, honestly, when Trump came in the first time, they started to lift the hoods. Once Trump got in a second time, they decided the hoods were off. And listen, I'm perfectly fine with it because I want to know where you stand. I want to know that you're a despicable human being who lacks all morality, but wants to go around and teach and preach Christianity. I want to know who you are because then I know how to deal with you. It is unfortunate that that is where we are. And it is one reason that it is so difficult for minorities to even try to listen to Republicans because they consistently coddle people like neo-Nazis. They consistently uplift people such as the Proud Boys. As we know, so many of those January 6ers were part of some of these extremist organizations. And now they have decided, you know what, you are best qualified to work for ICE. You are best qualified to go and terrorize these communities of color and round them up and throw them in random cages where hopefully they will be treated inhumanely.
All right. So that last comment from Jasmine Crockett actually allows us to segue to our next update. And it's the continuous meltdown when it comes to what ICE has been able to accomplish. And the reason why I wanted to show you guys this story using ground news, because I find something to be interesting about this update. In 6 months, ICE have arrested 350 gang members just in Houston alone. Now, you would think that is great news, but according to ground news, only one side wants to discuss it. And this is what we call a blind spot, where only one side of the political spectrum will cover a story. And you guessed it, only the right is talking about this. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that only 17% of left-leaning sources are willing to talk about this story. I wonder why. Now, to give you an example how delusional Democrats have been, listen to Joy Reid describe what's been going on. Take a look.
I believe what he is saying is that the brown people who are being deported and detained by ICE, by his masked agents, are natural-born field workers. Something about them makes them natural-born field slaves. He intends to bring the deportees right on back here soon, somehow, to get them to want to come back because they make the perfect nearly slave labor.
Okay, so she claims slave labor is what's happening on why President Trump is doing what he's doing with ICE, which is a complete joke. Again, if you guys haven't been following along, just go to ground.news/Devori. This tool shows us the bottom line, shows us what both sides are saying. And on this particular story, as I already showed you, only right-leaning sources are talking about him. And I see why. You got delusional hacks like Joy Reid describing, I guess, arresting 350 gang members as an attempt from the administration to create slave labor. I don't know how you connect those two. It's really mind-boggling. But as usual, I want you guys to be able to do your own research and think for yourself. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code DeVory, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan.
Chad, obviously the president ran hard for 10 years on border security and deportations of people who are illegal, particularly criminals. What is it about the Democratic Party where we can't find 1, 5, 10, a million of them to admit that this is a big issue and it's going the way the people want it to go?
Well, I agree with you. Obviously, they got it wrong for 4 years under President Biden. They continue to get it wrong. They're on the wrong side of this issue. And folks like Joy Reid, I mean, I don't know what that clip was. That was insanity. I literally don't know what she's talking about there. And I think most of Americans just kind of like look at her and say, that's crazy. It's very clear what President Trump and his team are doing, which is they have to clean up the mess of the last 4 years of the Biden administration, letting over 12 million individuals come into this country, a lot of them criminal aliens. And so you got to remove them, right? And that takes time, and that takes effort, and that takes resources, which obviously came in the big, beautiful bill that President Trump and his team got over the finish line. So there's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of progress being made. And the Democrats, they just can't help themselves. They don't want to give the president a win. And I think fundamentally they don't believe in immigration enforcement.
Yeah, they don't believe in that whatsoever. They don't care where you came from. They don't care why you got here or what you're here to do. They just want to use you in order to vote in their elections. That's really why Democrats are continuing to aggressively fight this. Now, let's go to our next story, and this is huge. So President Trump has announced that he'll be meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska in hopes to finally bring an end to this whole Ukraine and Russia war. And as usual, we got the normal reactions, Democrats downplaying this and saying this is going nowhere, and Putin is playing with Trump once again. And then you have Republicans being realistic about this meeting. Take a look.
Mark, it is significant that Putin is coming to a U.S. state for this first meeting. And the question is, can President Trump get him over the finish line to really deal with Zelensky?
Well, I'm surprised it's in the U.S. If I were Putin, I'd be a little cautious, maybe. Look, there's no reason to think this will work based on history and based on Putin. But it's the best available option. A lot of the people I talk to say, well, why not? You're not going to get Putin. A Putin-Witkoff deal is not going to move anything to a final conclusion. You're going to have to do a deal with the devil. And when you deal with the devil's in the details. And the details of this will matter a lot. The Europeans are going to be not literally at the table, but figuratively. And so the president's going to have to demonstrate that he's got the capacity to not only sell a deal and broker a deal with Putin, but then sell it to Zelensky and then sell it to Europe.
This actually brings us to the current sticking point on Zelensky's side. And that is he does not want to surrender any land to Russia, even land that's already been occupied by Russia, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it. I mean, in the context of war, if someone has occupied the land, technically, according to history, they own it now. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just stating the reality at this point. And so President Trump is going to have to obviously go there and really pull off a miracle, in my opinion. Putin doesn't want to give back any land to Zelensky. Zelensky wants the land that was taken away. So how President Trump is going to close this, I don't know. But I do pray he's able to get it done. And if he does, amongst all the other things he's already accomplished, I mean, what more can Democrats say then? Well, in the meantime, this is what Democrats are saying, particularly about Ukraine. Take a look.
The main question here, right? Putin wants territory and he wants essentially, again, to control Ukraine's future. So what the Ukrainians want, because look, I'm not someone who's going to sit here and tell you that the Ukrainians are somehow going to reconquer all of this territory, that they're somehow going to take back Crimea. That is highly, highly unlikely. We've learned that. And this war does need to at least stop. A ceasefire. Now, what Ukrainians need, though, is a credible security guarantee that if that happens, if this is a frozen conflict, if that front line kind of ceases, and maybe there's not true peace where each side fully accepts the terms of the other, what the Ukrainians need to know is that that's just not going to lead to Russia reinvading them in 5 years or 10 years or trying to assassinate their leaders. They need to know that there's potentially going to be a security force of Europeans who are in Ukraine to secure any peace deal. They want, if not NATO membership, some kind of credible security guarantee that they can trust, including the provision of weapons for their military so the Russians don't feel like they can easily invade them again. These are the kind of details I'm talking about where Trump needs to step forward with the Europeans and offer a credible package, which is precisely what Putin does not want. He will want Trump to assure him that the Ukrainians will have no package like that. So it's not just about territory, as complicated as that is. It's also about the future of Ukraine as a sovereign state.
Yeah, so my only reaction to all of this so far is all parties are going to have to compromise. That's the only way a deal is going to get done, okay? You're not going to see a deal where Russia gets everything they want and Ukraine gets nothing. That's just not going to happen. And vice versa. Ukraine can't get everything they want and Russia gets nothing. And that's the whole purpose of a deal where all parties get something, but they also have to give something. And if President Trump, as I said earlier, can close that, I mean, talk about a presidency so far. All right. Now, here is John Bolton, out of all people, finally acknowledging the power of tariffs and how President Trump has been using them. And can he use tariffs in regards to this particular war to bring it to a close? Take a look.
So the Trump administration using tariffs quite frequently as it pertains to both economic and foreign policy. What do you make of the latest announcements of tariffs on India to try to curb the sale of Russian oil?
Well, it's certainly very interesting, and I think the use of tariffs to achieve foreign policy objectives is certainly permissible, and probably we should have been doing more of it before. In this context, what it's intended to do is punish the Russians for their aggression in Ukraine by punishing the purchasers of their oil and gas. And unfortunately, I think we may have two strategic objectives conflicting with one another. We've been trying to pull India away from Russia and away from China for some time, and I think this is going to drive the Indians back in the wrong direction.
Okay, so did you hear him carefully in the beginning? He said that we should have been using tariffs in this strategic way in the past more often, and they didn't, because everybody has tariff derangement syndrome. I mean, TDS, right? There's some people that just believe tariffs is 100% negative. Now, in what we've been able to see from the president, clearly that is not true, okay? And we've even seen the markets finally accept that fact as well. That's why it's no longer reacting to every single thing that President Trump says about tariffs now. It's been stable. And as time continues to go on and deals continue to get closed because tariffs are used as a tool and a weapon or a threat, call it whatever you want, it seems to me that people like Bolton are definitely outdated with a better way of doing things on the foreign policy front. And two, that maybe using an unorthodox method is more than likely what we need right now in the world. However, that doesn't stop him from continuing to suggest the idea, just like everyone else in mainstream media, that Putin and this meeting with President Trump is an opportunity for Putin to, subdue Trump and make him get back on Trump's good side, and that Trump is going to come back and cheerlead for Putin. I mean, you guys are going to catch on to his tone and his language. Take a listen.
But I think what Putin is now doing, using the threat that Trump had made some time ago, if they didn't reach a ceasefire with Ukraine, that these sanctions would begin, to offer to Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, at the meeting in the Kremlin on Wednesday, that he would like a meeting with Trump, and now apparently one is about to happen, perhaps next week, which gives Putin a real opportunity to try to influence Trump and to break free of the pariah status that he's had since the Russian invasion back in 2022.
Okay, so that point that he's making, guys, this is what you're going to continue to hear throughout this week. Mainstream media will report that Putin's meeting with Trump, Trump is meeting with Putin, and that we all have to be on the lookout for Putin manipulating the president, okay? And what I find interesting is so disrespectful. You think you'd be rooting for the president to be successful? You think you would have acknowledged by now that President Trump isn't an idiot? I mean, he has brokered 11 peace deals for the record already. And clearly he's been able to use tariffs in a way that we haven't seen before, and it has yielded results. So can they put some respect on the president's name already? That's all I'm asking for. All right, so now we move to what Peter Navarro had to say about how these tariffs are being used. Take a look.
Tell me about the trade relationship between the U.S. and India ahead of this meeting with Russia next week. Yeah, I'm really want to clarify what's going on with India because there's a lot of questions about it. But here's the deal. We start with India. Highest tariffs in the world, big non-tariff barriers, and we run a close to $50 billion trade deficit with them. Consumers get hurt, workers, businesses. Then India uses American dollars from our consumers to buy Russian oil, okay? And then the Russians use the money from India, from America, to build their war machine and go out, buy some more weapons, drones, bombs to kill Ukrainians. And then the Americans, as well as the European taxpayers, have to pony up billions more because Russia's been empowered by India. And we've had conservatively over 300,000 Russian and Ukrainians die in this war alone. Some people think it's over 1 million. This can't go on.
I think everybody's in agreement that this war cannot continue to drag on, but it has. And both sides, to their own detriment, haven't really shown a willingness to come to, at a minimum, a ceasefire deal. I mean, that's just the bottom line to it. However, Peter Navarro does make a very good point here, is that someone's got to pay for it, right? And this ends up being the criticism of President Trump, of course, is that conservatives and Trump supporters are not keen on ponying up any type of money to send weapons to Ukraine or any war for that matter. People are done with it, which is why it was smart for the president to say, hey, we're not paying for it. It's NATO that's actually paying for the weapons that have been sent to Ukraine. And to make things even more interesting, he's increased the tariffs on India in an effort to damage Russia economically. So we'll see where all this goes, of course. But one thing is for sure, Democrats continue to not only undermine President Trump, but to root for his failure. Listen to this.
Okay, let's just start with Russia and this idea that the Ukrainian president Zelensky, he's clear. We're not swapping territory. Our constitution says we can't do it. We won't do it. And the Ukrainian people don't want to do it. But as we just heard in that clip from the president, he's like, swapping territory is part of the mix.
Well, clearly, this President Trump, is not a fair dealer. He has never put pressure on Russia. Russia continues, as we speak, to bombard and kill Ukrainians and take its property. No sanctions and no weapons given to Ukraine to defend themselves. And then to say that you're going to negotiate a deal with Vladimir Putin without taking into consideration of where President Zelensky is no deal at all. I mean, it is just amazing to me that this president, who basically told you where he was when he said before the election to Russia, do whatever the hell you want to do. And that's what Russia has been doing on a continuous basis without any intervention by this president other than talk. And I knew that, the deadline was supposed to have been this past Friday.
Right.
And here we go, just extending it again. So nothing is happening, no pressure. It's not real.
All right. Well, the only thing I have to say about that is, what did President Biden do during his term? Nothing, except continuing to run up the deficit because we want to continue to pay for this endless war. So I'm not too sure what he is saying is really rooted in any truth or credibility, because the president has done more than Biden ever could in his 4 years. And that is not only sending Steve Witkoff multiple times to Russia. Multiple peace talks have taken place. No, they have not yielded the results that we wanted, but at least there is a table to have negotiations. And now they're meeting in person. So here's my thing. Let's say in the end, this war does come to an end because President Trump was able to broker a peace deal. Will you take back what you say, and will you give the president some level of credit? Now, something tells me that that individual and him as DNC is not going to do it. But I think people who can think for themselves can absolutely do it. And also people who can think for themselves can realize, even though President Trump is the leader of the free world, that doesn't mean people like Putin or Zelensky are going to listen to him. And I think we've seen that over the past 6 months. Now, let's get your guys' reaction in the comments section below to these stories. What's the chances you think President Trump is going to be able to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, particularly this week when he meets with Putin? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. What about Gavin Newsom being dealt another lawsuit in California this time from the Texas Attorney General? Let me know what you think is going to happen with that. And finally, what do you make of the media purposely not reporting the amount of gang members that have been arrested just in Houston alone? And I'm talking about left-leaning media sources. They're so quiet on it because they want to continue to push the narrative that President Trump is not arresting the worst of the worst, but he is. Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comment section below. Now, in our next video, President Trump was able to broker a record-breaking peace deal. Also, an active shooter in Georgia was shot dead at the scene. An officer did lose his life. I think you guys should hear about this story. And finally, in a desperate stunt from Gavin Newsom, he makes a terrible mistake. If you missed out on these stories and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.